On today's episode of The Driven Shot, Omar and I get a little bit philosophical. We also break down that 4-1 goleada Barça Bayern in Monjuic in the UEFA Champions League, and we get set for a Clásico weekend.
Hello and welcome back to the Driven Shot podcast, a collaborative effort between Blaugrana Graham and Mundo Deportivo. I'm Omar Hawwash, he is Jamie Colt, and today we will be reviewing the game between Barcelona and Bayern, where the Catalans came out with a 4-1 win and looking ahead to El Clásico this weekend.
Oh yeah, what a week it's being. We're on like 3 matches in 6 days.
Yeah.
Sevilla was Sunday?
Yeah.
Sevilla was Sunday, Bayern on Wednesday,
Bayern
and then Real Madrid tomorrow.
Clásico.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in and what's now kind of a fairly empty, I'll show you, empty press room. We heard just a little bit ago from Hansi Flick ahead of this match. He talked about kind of various players in the starting lineup and the referees, because obviously Real Madrid have put out this kind of video criticizing referees and stuff. And he's like, no, we focus on our game and
not on the referees.
We don't focus our energy on the referees, which is, I think, is correct. Like, you know, and it kind of goes back to like all good coaches and all good athletes focus on what they can and can't control, I think.
And I think it is a nice thing to kind of, you know, put out there, because previously we've seen coaches and we've seen players go out and be like, oh, you know, I can't believe the referee didn't like see that little action or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you know, as people who watch the sport, we say that, but you're on the pitch, you control your performance. And at the end of the day, very, very, very rare occasions will take place where you can say, yeah, the referee really turned that game around. But mostly it's on you as a player to not lose your head, or on you as a coach to not let that interfere with your tactics. Like it's in your
absolutely.
control.
Absolutely. And it's,
you know?
It's one of those things that professional athletes, professional coaches seem to focus on, is that kind of what is in our sphere of control. It's classic Stoic philosophy without kind of getting too deep into it. But it's, we're focusing on what's sort of in our hands, as they say in Spanish. And I remember Xavi talking about it as well, you know, when they played, who was it? An Italian club in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago. Napoli, maybe?
Was it Inter?
Or maybe Inter, where they had like a real bad refereeing decision, and they just went and...
Oh, the one with Dumfries and Ansu, I think, right? That's the one. That's what you're thinking about.
Wow, I'm terrible.
Where there was a handball or something. I think there was a handball or something, and then the referee. Because I saw people talk about that a couple of days back.
Right.
Where the referee got confused between Ansu and Dumfries, I think, and then he didn't award what should have been a penalty.
That sounds familiar. And basically, Xavi came home saying, like, okay, yeah, maybe the refereeing wasn't as good as it should have been, but at the same time, like, we should have played well enough to make sure that, you know, we weren't in a position where bad refereeing decisions can make and break it. We need to focus on what we can and can't control, and putting goals in the net and getting ahead on the scoreboard is something that should be in our control. So I think, you know, Hansi Flick going today, and we've discussed this on previous episodes as well, actually, that he's been like, you know what, you never answer back to the referee. You just accept it and move on. And, you know,
we've seen him do that. We've seen him do that, you know, on El Día Después. And even if you just like watch what's going on, like he very clearly will be like I saw one. I don't remember. It wasn't Sevilla. It was before the Sevilla game, because I remember this clearly. Because the camera directors shifted over to Lamine after some challenge had happened, and Lamine was about to talk up to someone, and then Hansi was like, no, come here, calm down, it's not worth it, just play your game. And then Lamine got an assist after that. So
there you go. But because also, you know, and to put it down to like an everyday thing, like let's say, you know, someone cuts you off in traffic, right? And you carry that then like frustration and anger around with you for a little bit afterwards, without getting kind of too like you know, it's philosophical and psychological about this. But you do carry that. You do carry that around with you, and you know, there's a kind of philosophy that's like, you've allowed that person to provoke that reaction from you. You know, there's this kind of, you know, and so I think Hansi Flick, I can imagine that he's kind of trying to instill that in the players, and you know, don't let the referee, don't let that opposing player kind of provoke that reaction from you, because it's going to make your game worse. So just, you know, focus on your game, focus on doing what you do best, and let them do what they should do best. And if they're not doing it as best they should be, then fine. So yeah, I think
exactly.
It's good. It's a good philosophy to have. And
there is yeah.
I'm gonna get thrown out of the press room. We've just been told to wrap things up. But we've not got into the matches at all. But we've gone philosophical early on, and we got deep into this episode.
There's one thing that I do want to say as well is that I spoke about last episode how the Monjuic could be Barca's new fortress, and I think they definitely have made that happen.
Yeah.
And it's
trip to the Bernabeu tomorrow, though.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting one because it's very different, obviously, to the stage that we've seen Barca being set in recently. And most of the games have been at home, but they did play away at the Mendizorroza against Alaves. That one was a 3-0 victory. Didn't let a single goal in. And I think we spoke about this before as well. Iñaki Peña, I think, has done well. I think he's done better than most people expected him to. I mean, sure, you could argue, well, Bayern didn't really have many chances. I mean, they had one shot on target, and that went into the back of the net. But I also do think that, I think Iñaki does deserve his flowers because it's not easy to deal with having to be Barca's first goalkeeper now. And as Wojciech Szczesny also went out and said, I mean, Iñaki hasn't given a reason to be on the bench. So obviously that's why I'm not in contention, is because he's just been good enough to not need anyone else,
and that's typically the way, right? Like if you think Ter Stegen, he was playing all the matches previously. There was no reason for him to be on the bench and bring in someone else. And Iñaki Peña stepped up. He's getting a lot of criticism, and I think unfairly so. But he's doing well. He had a great match against Bayern. He had a great match against Sevilla. There's no reason to think that tomorrow in the Bernabeu he's not going to have a great match against Real Madrid.
No, and I mean, if people want to talk about, that was Bayern, they're not doing well. Sevilla, they're not. Real Madrid aren't doing all that well either.
Right.
I mean, you could look at the results, fine, but the Bellingham experiment is not working. It's not working. They tried to deploy him as an actual midfielder, and he's absolutely failed. He's become a shadow of what we saw last season because he's not an actual midfielder. He's a way more attacking player than what you want from a box-to-box. So in that case, someone like Valverde fits better, which means Bellingham is going to be up front, and he's a better finisher than he is a playmaker, I think. At least now in recent times he's been. So that's going to be a challenge for Iñaki Peña. But I also don't think that his confidence is doing all too well. Mbappe clearly has not settled in as much as people want to tell you he has. He clearly hasn't settled in yet. So they have their own, dysfunction going on over there. So it's not going to be one of those games where Barca fans should be scared, like, oh no, here comes the real test. I think the real test has already passed, I mean,
it's been a week of a real test, right? Between Real Madrid, Bayern. I mean, just hosting Bayern, like that was such a big test, and to put such an experienced team that is Bayern visiting Monjuic, but and going toe to toe.
And there's also a lot of youngsters.
With and I've seen quite a lot of comments recently, like, Bayern's still a work in progress as well with Vincent Kompany. But I don't know, like Barca is very much a work in progress. Like I think there was.
Oh yeah,
I saw 7. I think it was of the 11 starters.
7 of the 11, yes, 7 of the 11
from La Masia and youngsters, and it's like that's incredible. Fermin just returning from injury, and he was already in the starting 11 again. So talk about reconstruction jobs. To go out and not just get like a 2-1 or a 1-0, but like 4-1 with a Rafinha hat trick. We've not even started talking about Rafinha yet, but a 4-1 it's a dominant win from a side that is still pretty under construction. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, and I think that's my problem with it is it does feel like people are looking for excuses. At least the pessimists are looking for excuses to not give Barcelona their flowers, not give Hansi Flick the praise that he deserves and what he's been doing and the work he's been doing with the club, and I think for how well things have gone and you look at how Barca were at the start of the season, I think a lot of people would have said that, well, maybe it wasn't going to be that easy. It wasn't going to be, it hasn't been easy per se, but Barca's results the last 7 or 8 games have been nothing but wins. They're all virtually, if not actually, unbeaten this season so far. So it's been a lot of good results, been a lot of good play. We've seen the attitude change in the team. We've seen the attitude change in how the coach approaches these games, the post-match, the pre-match. It's been very, very different under Hansi Flick. And I think people who keep coming up with this like, oh, but we haven't really been tested yet. Barca haven't really been tested yet. It's like, yeah, they have. They've come into a season after a lot of changes.
Completely.
And the only player that Barca actually brought in was Dani Olmo. Not to mention a bunch of departures, a bunch of players left, whether French players or not. Frenkie de Jong has been injured for so long. Gavi's had an ACL for so long. Ansu's been injured, came back, then got injured for pretty much all of his loan move at Brighton Hove Albion. So Barca are very much a work in progress, and that's okay. And if you want to match it up and say, well, this team is the real test, do that. But it's not going to change the fact that Barca have done incredibly well. Look at every team out there. The only team you could argue isn't really a build in progress is probably Manchester City. And even they have had a dip in form lately. Phil Foden doesn't look like himself anymore. Haaland is having some troubles when it comes to the big games. So he has to rely on some of his teammates, right? So even that you could argue is a work in progress. Same thing with Arsenal. Liverpool just got Arne Slot in and Jurgen Klopp, who's been there for half a decade, left. So every team really is a work in progress. And when you think of it like that, it does sound a bit philosophical. I think that's probably the theme of this episode. Is it does kind of a bit philosophical, but yeah. And everything is relative. Everything is relative. But what you have to think about is, I don't remember which coach it was who said it, but you can only beat what's in front of you. So if you want to say like, oh well, they haven't played this team yet. Well, they're not on the fixture list. How are they supposed to play them? Like, just judge also, what's in front of you. What's in front of you is a very well playing Barca.
Say what you're saying further, and I 100% agree. You're spot on with it. Just look at the goal difference we're talking about as well, though. Like, Barca are 3 points clear at the top of the table, right? We're talking about a goal difference of 23. That's 33 scored and just 10 conceded. Like, and that's massive. There's no other team that's even close.
No. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And also to think, like, I just want to say this to all the pessimists, right? Real Madrid signed Kylian Mbappe for free. Just think about that. Let's just let that simmer for a second. And think about the amount of goals that people thought they were going to see from Real Madrid this season and how things have gone. And Barca have done incredibly well. 27 points from 10 games. And, it's not been 9 wins that have been easy. The loss that Barca had in the Champions League so far has been against Monaco. And the other loss was against Osasuna before the international break when Hansi Flick threw on pretty much half a B side on. The lineup for Barca, I'm looking at it right now. Eric Garcia was the double pivot. Ferran Torres was playing on his right wing, which he hasn't been playing on the right wing for so long. Every time he's been put on the wing, it's been on the left because Lamine is on the right. So, yeah, you could say right wing is his natural position, but when you don't play in that position in, a year or two, you kind of lose that a little bit. Pau Victor was playing as a winger as well. Pablo Torre was the 10. And that's not even mentioning the defense, where half of it was Jules Koundé and Koubarsi. Koubarsi is also very young. Let's remember that. He is such a young player. And then the other half was Gerard Martin and Sergio Dominguez. So it's far from like the Gala 11. Not to say that Barca should have fielded the Gala 11 against Osasuna necessarily, but it's Osasuna are 8th in the league right now. They're not. They're doing pretty well. So
I'm gonna have to cut you off.
It was a test game.
I'm really sorry. We're I'm the last one here in the press room, and these poor people want to go home. So I'm going to have to say goodbye. Okay. I will leave you to talk about the upcoming Clásico. Just to wrap up my bit here, I think just like what an incredible week it's been, and what an incredible weekend it's going to be, regardless of the result. I'm going to sign off right here, and I'll leave you, and these people can go home. 10 years ago today, Luis Suarez made his debut for Barça at the Santiago Bernabeu, and it was a 3-1 to Real Madrid. And that was the worst result of FC Barcelona that season. They went on to win the treble, the first treble under Luis Enrique. Well, the treble under Luis Enrique. The first season of MSN. I'm just going to leave you with that little fact.
Keep that in mind.
So, a bad result tomorrow may not be the end of the world either. Obviously, going 6 points clear at the top. Trouble. Obviously, going 6 points clear at the top of the league would be ideal. But hey, I'm going to jump off. Thanks very much, Omar. I'll leave you to wrap things up here. Thanks, guys, for listening. And I'll catch up with you later. Yeah,
absolutely. That has been this episode of The Driven Shot. It was shorter than we had hoped for. It has been from the Camp Nou press room, though, so that's nice. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week for another episode. I've been Omar Hawwash. He's been Jamie Coles, and this has been The Driven Shot Podcast, a collaborative effort between Blog Anagram and Mundo Deportivo. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.